Hello, it's me, your friend. Welcome to part 1 of a tutorial video series going over how to retexture models for Tabletop Simulator and more specifically for Warhammer 40k. Part 2 will go over using actual Photoshop files, and part 3 will be getting into the asset bundling scene. This video will be going over using compressed Jpeg images, most commonly found throughout, and using different techniques to make your own colors and stuff for existing models. This isn't a video on how to texture or model exactly, but to retrieve and edit existing files to get what you want. This will probably be used mostly for recoloring, but certain aspects I'll be teaching can lead into more advanced developments. I'll be teaching this video assuming you've never used or have very little experience with image editing, so we'll be taking things a bit slower, and I'll be covering and going more in depth with certain topics to help you understand things better. So let's start with the things you'll need. Firstly, you'll need Tabletop Simulator. If you don't have that, or have no interest in getting it, I have no idea what you're doing here. Regardless, it's pretty cheap and it goes on sale regularly. Second is an imaging editing program. I'm going to be using Photoshop, but you can download free software like GIMP or Krita, and you should be able to follow along pretty easily. Thirdly, and this is optional, though I do recommend it, is 3D software. I'm going to be using Maya 2015, but you can use Blender, which is also free. Now there's going to be a few things lost in translation if you're using different software, but the things I'll be talking about should be pretty universal. If you get caught up trying to find a certain thing, you can always use Google to help you out. So let us get started. The first thing I want to do is to get access to the models so we can get the data we need. Open up Steam, go to your library, and find Tabletop Simulator. Click the Browse Workshop button, that'll bring you to the workshop itself, and go ahead and type in the name of the army that you want. You might come across armies that only use asset bundlings, and I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to wait until that video is out for you to fully edit and retexture things of that nature, or you might run into models that aren't on the workshop yet, and for that I'm truly sorry that you're going to have to wait until someone does manage to model them. So, let us type in Space Marines, because I'm going to put on the shoes of one of the most boring people in the world. And we're going to use Ultramarines. I already have it downloaded, but if you don't have it downloaded, just type in the name of the army you want, hover over the thing, and then click on the little green button in the corner, and it should download automatically. Once you got that done, go ahead and click Create, Single Player, and down here in the Workshop tab, you should see your downloaded Workshop item on the first list, but if it's not there, you can click the Workshop button itself, and it'll pop up with all the stuff you already have. You can go ahead and find it, do all that stuff. When you do find it, click it once and hit load. Now, unfortunately, the author of this mod and several other authors out there don't believe in bags and want to gloriously display every single fucking model in existence for us. So now we have to suffer with a long-ass load time and frame drops. And remember, optimization is important. Okay, now we're done loading. Go ahead and find the model that you want. We're just going to pick a regular dude out here. Single him out. Alright, and when you have your model, go ahead and right-click him, and go to Custom. And the things we'll need are Model Mesh and Diffuse Image. What you want to do now is click on the kind of HTTP website address in the model and mesh. Control-C to copy. Go into your internet browser, Control-C to paste, hit enter, and you should be able to download something right away. Let's go ahead and save file. Perfect, and now we're going to drag that to the desktop. Now I made a folder specific for this. You might want to do so as well, just so it's easier to find out where your models are located. You may come across a website that'll bring you to something that shows a whole lot of numbers instead of an actual file to download. If you do come across that, go ahead and copy all of the numbers and stuff that provides, paste it into a notepad document, and save that as a .obj. That's very important because OBJs are a universal object file that 3D software can read. So now we're going to go back into Tabletop Simulator. We're going to do the same thing for the diffuse image. And you'll see what looks like a hot mess of squished in things, but kind of familiar things. You can see the Space Marine head right there. We're just going to go ahead and save that image as Desktop, Space Marine Textures, and we're going to rename this Space Marine Texture. So let's get our 3D program up and running. So now what we're going to do is we're going to load in all the files we download into our respective programs so that it'll be easier for us to edit the images and stuff like that. So with your 3D software, we're going to go ahead, File, Import, and we're going to locate where we saved that OBJ file. It's right here. You can tell the file by the .obj at the very end. We're going to double click that. It should load up pretty easily. The next thing we're going to do is to apply the texture onto the model itself so that we can go back and forth from Photoshop to Maya to see the changes we've made without having to upload and re-upload and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to select the model and I'm going to hit Control A to open up the attribute editor. In this little tab right here, we're going to click the right arrow a few times until we see Lambert 1. Lambert 1 is the default shaders all models use just to have some kind of base coating over them. And once you have that selected, we're going to go down to where it says Color, and the black and white checker box to the right. We're going to click that once. It'll bring up a new window, Create Render Node. We're going to go down to File, click that once, and then the attribute editor will change. In the image name, right there in the tab, we're going to hit the folder, and then we're going to find the Space Marine texture that we downloaded originally. So go ahead and double click that. Now the texture hasn't applied to the model yet because it's not in texture viewing mode. So for Maya, what you're going to do is you're going to push the number 6 on your keypad and then it'll apply it right there. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the model and then we're going to go view the UVs for the model itself. For Maya, click on the button that says UV Texture Editor and it'll bring up a window that looks like this. You can see all the white noise over here is the model being laid out flat across the texture so that it'll transform into the texture itself over the model, and it's all 3D model jargon. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to try to extract the UVs for our model and bring it back into Photoshop on top of our texture layer so that we can easily see where everything is corresponding to the model. Before we do that though, we're going to load up Photoshop. Okay, and then we're just going to File, Open, go to our Space Marine textures, and then open up the Space Marine texture file itself. Alright, now if you're using a Dawn of War model, the texture size will not be squared in the sense. Usually texture files will be 1024 by 1024, 512 by 512, 2048 by 2048, things like that. They're all even. With this file, they do a little bit of trickery to kind of get more information into the file without having to expand the file size to make things save size, because they're doing an RTS and you want to be as optimized as possible. So if we export our UV texture as a 1024 by 1024, it's not going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into Photoshop, hit Image, and go look at image size, and we can see it's a 1536 by 1024. So we're just going to copy the 1536, that's be the width and the height. We're going to go back into Maya, and on the UV texture editor, we're going to hit Polygons, UV Snapshot, and this will bring in an exporting window. I've already set it up to the 1536 by 1024 file size, but if you haven't, do that already yourself. And then we're going to go Browse, go to our desktop, our Space Marine textures, and then we're going to name this Space Marine UVs.tga. TGA is Targa. It is a universal file type that Photoshop can read. And once we get that all saved out, we're going to minimize Maya. We're going to come back to that in a bit. And then we're going to open the Space Marine UV file. And then it'll bring up a black screen with little white lines resembling the sides and the edges of the model. We're going to go, let's go back here. We're going to hit Control A to select all, Control C to copy, go back into our Space Marine texture file, zoom out a little bit, Control V, and that'll paste our UV texture page. Now to get the black transparent, we're going to select our UV layer. Let's rename that to UVs. And up here where it says normal, this is your layer styles. We're going to go and select it and make sure to select the screen option, and that'll get rid of all the black, and then leave the white so we can see where everything is. Cool, so now that we got that done, let's go into Maya, because we want to see where certain aspects of the model are on the texture page. So if you have your model selected and you have the UV texture editor open, we're going to right click, hold, and go down to face. And this will let us select faces on the model. We're going to double click the shoulder pad, and on the texture editor you can see exactly where that shoulder pad is on the texture itself. You can also kind of guess just by looking at it. Okay, this shoulder pad has the arrow with the skull on it. There's the arrow with the skull on it. Blah blah blah. This is just to make sure you know where you're texturing and where everything is. So with that information, we're going to go back into Photoshop, and then we're going to start changing the colors, because that is most of what people want to do with textures anyway. So we know where the shoulder pad is. We're going to make a new layer. Let's make sure UVs is on top of your layers, and then go ahead and lock it so you don't accidentally change anything. With this layer, we're just going to name this shoulder pad color. And there's a couple ways to go about changing colors. Probably the easiest, but kind of most dangerous and dirty way is to select layer styles and go to color. And with that, you select your color, and then you just draw over it. Make sure your opacity is at a high level, and then you can see, if we get rid of our UVs, that the colors change, but because it's a color layer, it changes every single color, dirt, grays, to that color, so you might not get the exact result that you want. You have to be kind of careful with the layer style like this. Another way we can do this is if let's Control Z to get rid of all that. We can use the marquee tool or the lasso tool to make a selection around what we want to change. And when we do that, you can see we've made a selection by the little marching ants around what we got. Hit Control U to bring up the hue saturation slider. And then we can change the color through that if we just move the slider around this. Saturation as well, you can make it more saturated or more gray, how dark it is or how light it is. With this layer, actually, we should have made a copy of the background layer itself. Oops. Make sure everything is deselected before you do that. You can hit Control J to make a copy, or you can drag the layer itself down to this little button. It looks like a little page with a fold on it, and that'll make a copy of itself. Let's go ahead and select that. Hit Control U again for the hue saturation, and then you can see very clearly we can change the colors, change the saturation, change the white and black. Now, we can do it that way, or if that takes too long, we can also go to Select, Color Range. This will bring up a window. You can see a black screen. It should come up in black, and then your cursor changes into a eyedropper tool. What you want to do is just select the blue or the color that you want to change, and then you can see, okay, this is the actual file itself that it's showing us. The white represents the colors that it's going to choose for us. The black represents all the stuff that it's going to ignore. Now, simply choosing the blue itself isn't enough. We have to make sure that it's got enough samples of the blue. So we're going to select the eyedropper with the plus sign, and then we're just going to keep clicking on the blue to make sure, okay, yes, it shows a whole bunch of white there and nothing else has changed. You can also use this fuzziness slider to increase or decrease the kind of grabbing it does with the colors. Less fuzziness means it's going to select less colors. More fuzziness means it's going to select pretty much everything. So we're just going to leave that right about here before it starts highlighting everything else. And then when you hit OK, you can see it selected a whole bunch of colors for us, all across the entire document. And now, with the Control U, the hue saturation slider, we can change every single color at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a kind of purplish, grayish color. Looks okay. It hasn't really gotten the shoulder pad, so I'm going to make a new layer. Color correction. we're just going to make this a color layer itself. And I'm going to select the color on top of this. And then quick and dirty, don't want to worry too much about details or messing up because this is a demonstration. All right, let's do it over here too. Okay, so now that we got the broad strokes colors done, we're gonna go to File, Save As, and then go ahead and save over your Space Marine texture. You can also make a new texture, but I recommend doing it over this just to make things easier. Once that's saved, go back into your 3D modeling program. Get this out of the way. Make sure your model is selected. Get out of the faces. Select the entire model itself. Control A for the attribute editor. And then you can see a little box with a sphere and what looks like the texture wrapping around the sphere. Click that once and that'll refresh your entire model with the saved JPEG that we just edited. Next, I'm going to do a little demonstration to kind of just kind of go over the process of the entire thing. It's pretty easy. It should be pretty quick. I'll probably be talking throughout the process just to let you know what I'm doing, giving a little a feedback of what it all is. So let's change the face a little bit. We're gonna we see this face right there. We don't need to go to the UVs because we know that's the only face on the texture itself. But if we don't know where it is, we can always go back. Okay, the lines are right there. It corresponds to the model. Perfect. So color correction, we have a color layer already. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the eyes to a red because that's more fearsome and more angry. Perfect. You can always erase too if you don't like what you see or if you messed up. All right. Let's see. Let's make a black and it's a soft brush. No, not quite what we want. So we're gonna make a new layer. Leave that normal, and then we're gonna give them. Let's change the layer to darken. There we go. Okay, now we're just gonna make him. Give him some eyeliner. Some black eyeliner. It's always fun to make your own custom chapters. I think I'm gonna name this the Cold Steel Legion or the Cold Steel Chapter because that sounds cool. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and now I think let's see, let's give this more of a gray instead of a purple. Okay. Alright, okay, I like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And then go back into our modeling program and refresh just to see the changes. Yeah, that's okay. Looks very scary, very fearsome. The Cold Steel guys are a proud warrior race. I do want to change the hands and the arms a little bit, so we're going to have our UV texture open over here. We're going to select this guy, and then we're going to go into faces, and then we're going to select the arms and the hands, and then we're going to find out where they are on the texture page, and that's where they are, the right to the left of the backpack right there. Go back into Photoshop, let's turn on our UVs. Okay, there's the backpack, and this is the arms and the hands. Let's turn that layer off. I'm gonna, let's see, let's give their arms some red. No, actually, let's find out where the arms are closest to the hands. So you can also select edges or vertexes to see where exactly the UVs end and begin, and we can see, okay, it's the lower part that are closer to the arms or the hands. So we can just do this, just a quick broad stroke like that. And we can erase the excess right there, and then the hands are right here, so we're gonna, let's make that same gray we had on the face. Right over the hands. Okay. And I want to do the same thing for the feet and the legs. So let's see. Going back into faces, we can select the legs and the feet to get an idea of where they are, and this is where they're located. So if we go back into Photoshop, we can see, yes, they are right here. It's always fun to give your custom faction or chapter some backstory too. Let's say the Cold Steel Legion, they were born with special psyker powers. They were stronger than all the rest of the chapters out there, even the Ultramarines. They were stronger in the academy and the training because they're just so cool. And so because they were so strong, they fought against Chaos all the time. And they even fought Khorne at one point. It was a really big showdown. But before the Cold Steel can kill them, Khorne turned against them and he made them evil. But because they're so cool and so strong, they became good again. And now they have to hunt Khorne for revenge. Let's make this black. Let's go back into layer 1. Let's see where the bottom of this leg is. Okay, it's right there. Let's make that black. Okay. Let's save it. And then refresh it on our Maya page. Yeah, there we go. That's looking good. We can also change the logos and icons on the shoulder pads too. I think we'll do that to better represent the Cold Steel chapter. We're gonna make a new layer. Make that normal with a soft brush. And a kind of mid opacity. We're just gonna cover this up. You can always bring in your own images and whatnot on your shoulders. Let's bring in what they worship. They don't worship the God Emperor. They worship the real Emperor himself. There we go. Scale him down so that he can fit on the shoulder. Pushing enter. Let's put it above all those layers. Now we're gonna rasterize this layer so that we can edit it. And I'm gonna select a dirty brush. Not that one. It's this'll do. And kind of erase around the edges because it's not perfect. They've seen battle. Let's lower the opacity. So they've seen battle and the icon's been scratched away. All right, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and save that. Going back into Maya, refreshing, and there we go. This is the Cold Steel chapter. Now once you're finished with your texture, this is the easy part. We go back into Tabletop Simulator, make sure you have the model over here. I'm going to right click again, go back to Custom, Diffuse Image. We're going to hit the Browse Local Files button, and then find the texture that you've made. We're going to double click it, and then we're going to select Cloud. Don't select Local because that will make it so that only you can see it and not anyone else. Cloud actually saves it to the Steam Cloud, so it's there forever. Click it once, let it load. You should get a confirmation that it did upload. Hit import, and you're done. Perfect. I like it. And then once you're satisfied with your work, you can right click the model, save object, save it wherever. Cold Steel. best steal. And then if you want to get it back, you hit objects, saved objects. Where did I save it? Space Marines, I think? Yeah, there it is. Let me check my notes to see if we got any more. Nope, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you for part 2 and 3.